or so, or infrastructure actions. And I just want to point out that we do some recycling, but it's not a major focus. We're trying to think about upscale solutions. So only 12% of our actions that we've documented are recycling. So let's talk about education and engagement. One thing we really enjoy doing is work around Plastic Free July. So there's a proclamation there on the left from Hopkinton, plastic-free picnic that happened in Cornish. Lots of us are doing displays at our libraries and tabling at events in our towns and putting up signage. So there's a lot going on all year round, but we'd like to focus on Plastic Free July as well. Members are doing lots and lots of writing. There are letters to the editor, articles, blog posts. We have a newsletter that comes out about every other month, 10 Towns Toolkit Today, and green tips. So there are links. I'm going to put up my slides afterwards on the website, and there will be links so you can go look at all of that. We have a brochure that's there in the middle, and somebody had a great idea to leave these little cards at restaurants to encourage them to use less plastic. So we're just doing all kinds of engagement. There are 9 new web pages on the website since 2 years ago, for sure. Lots of them are on the resources page. There's a page on advanced not recycling, alternatives to single-use plastic, so things that people can use if they're at a restaurant or influencing their restaurants, bottle bill information, information on extended producer responsibility. I ended up getting a lot of things for pet owners to lower their plastic use. There's a page for medical professionals, lots of information about toxins on there if you're interested. There's a page on schools switching to reusables. I'll talk about that in a minute. Cindy gave us some great tips for zero waste, and that's become its own page. And there's also a page that's separate from the resources that's a glossary of talking trash terms. So we have 2 UNH students that are with us right now. Well, I should say that this past year. So Kennedy McGrath is a sophomore at UNH. She's studying marine biology and also sustainability. She's a dual major and also a minor in marine policy. And she's our person that's doing the social media for us. So those are some of the things that she's put up on Instagram. So she's there on the left. And then we had a fellow, Cassie LaFleur, this past summer, and she was the one that was working on the schools switching to reusables. So there's this document that she made of how to save money in school cafeterias. So she's actually shown that that is very, very effective. So for infrastructure, you know, I mentioned that we have been doing some recycling, and I wanted to put this up just to show you how much of a challenge this is. In Harrisville, in just under a year and a half, they collected almost 2 tons of plastic film and earned 3 benches. And this is happening in other towns in the state. And then we're also have 16 towns that are doing collection of polystyrene foam, and they've collected 15,000 pounds of foam. And I think it's only been a year, maybe a little bit more than that. And foam is 95% air. So the volume that we're going to have cut down in our landfills with this is quite huge, excuse me. But what we really want is to not have any polystyrene or any plastic film being produced any longer. So that's our goal, is to work on systemic change and policy and upscale solutions. This is a plastic-free breakfast in Hopkinton School, elementary school, I think. So one way to get rid of some of that plastic film was an idea that Cindy Heath had about mesh bag mamas. So this action is under creativity and craftivism in the toolkit. And people in the Upper Valley and also in the Monadnock region end up sewing more than 1,000 produce bags that were made out of organic cotton. They were distributed in 10 stores. And I figured out if they got used once a week, that in a year that would keep 50,000 plastic bags from being landfilled or incinerated. And the Mesh Bag Mamas have a mascot and a song and bookmarks and all kinds of things. So please look at that in the toolkit. And they got recognized by Beyond Plastics. And Bonnie Christie now has some company when she testifies up in Concord. There's several people that have been going up and testifying on bills. We have been working with our state representatives. I think we've had a half a dozen that come to our plastics working group meetings, and Representative Partial and Representative Dutsey come regularly, and we really appreciate having them with us. And we've gotten a little bit of national recognition and have been able to offer our expertise. The United Church of Christ this past year did a free from plastic pollution resolution, and the toolkit is a resource for this national effort. We have become an affiliate of Beyond Plastics, and some of our members have been trained to meet with our federal senators and representatives or their staff members. We did some commenting on the EPA's national strategy to prevent plastic pollution and also the New Hampshire's solid waste management plan. And we've been assisting our state reps, as I said, and also the New Hampshire Healthcare Workers for Climate Action. Christina did a presentation to them about toxins in plastic. And we finally got to meet in person one day in July. We had been meeting on Zoom for quite a long time. So I'd just like to read 3 more numbers. 1 is that we should never, ever give up. 2 is you are never too old to chase your dreams. And 3, it looks like a solitary sport, but it takes a team. And I should say you're never too young to chase your dreams either. So thank you for listening. And I'll take questions after if you have them, but I'm really looking forward to the rest of the presentations tonight about upstream solutions.
Thank you, Patsy. I think it's truly incredible what the Plastics Working Group has accomplished in just 2 short years. So I'll introduce our next panelist again. If you have questions for Patsy or accolades, you can throw them in the chat. Yayoi Kazumi is the founder of Zero Waste Ithaca in New York, which is the newest in a growing national network of community reuse coalitions. Her group is also a Beyond Plastics affiliate, just like the Plastics Working Group. Her initiative, Ithaca Reduces BYO, asks businesses to display a sticker to indicate they welcome customers to bring their own containers, bottles, utensils, and bags. Zero Waste Ithaca has enrolled over 100 businesses and local organizations in the program and sponsors many other projects, including community cleanups, reusables in schools, dumpster studies, and policy advocacy at the local and state levels. Yayoi, the screen is yours. And I think because I'm going to ask you to unmute as a co-host, I'm unfortunately not able to unmute. I can ask to unmute. There you go.
Okay. Am I sharing or was Suzanne sharing for me?
I think if you're okay with sharing,
okay.
That would be good.
Okay. Hold on a second. Share screen. Hold on. Let's see. Let's start the slideshow, present the view. And I hope it works. Wait a minute. Just a second. Let me do this again because it's not showing. Okay, here we go. I hope it works. There. How is the screen? Is it okay?
It's showing. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Christina, for a wonderful introduction. And I thank you all for joining me today. Thank you for having me. And I'd like to delve into the vital discourse surrounding BYO, or bring your own. I'm humbled to be invited here today among the illustrious guest speakers, and I'm really inspired by the Patsy's talk. I think it's so wonderful what she's been doing, and all the people in New Hampshire. I'd like to share my experience with BYO Community Action with Zero Waste Ithaca. The logo placed on this slide is the National Support Network that we started called BYO US Reduces. And my group, Zero Waste Ithaca, is its local group in the nationwide network of support network. Okay. And I'm gonna move to the next slide. How do I do that? Oh, shoot. How do I move to the next slide? Oh no, it's slide 4 now. Okay, here we go. So first, let's make sure everybody knows what BYO is. The 3 letters of BYO stand for bring your own. So you can add the 4th letter and it's up to your imagination. So it can be B for bottles, C for containers, U for utensils, B for bags, a lot of different things. The idea is to carry around and bring your own clean containers from home for refilling them, with food and drinks, and sometimes more. There are different things, other things than food that you can fill your bag, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit later. That agree to, with the businesses that agree to participate in the program. And second point, BYO is a zero waste practice, everyday zero waste practice. Some people, the kinds of things that Patsy mentioned, some people compost, some people mend, just to curb the consumption, overconsumption, and buying less, and buying close to nothing new. Because our consumption is killing the planet, as everyone knows. So I'm preaching to the choir here. So the third point, BYO is a global movement. We have Canada. Our program is inspired by a program in Canada. It's called Canada Reduces. And I know I saw some of the people in the chat that they're from Toronto, and that's where everything started. And we were introduced to a Canadian program by Zero Waste Chef, who is a book author, a speaker, and she has a lot of followers on Instagram and social media. And she introduced us to this idea of starting a BYO group. So there's a Canadian group, and we have Australian group. It's called the BYO Containers, byocontainers.org, just exactly that. It's from Australia, and they're doing amazing work. And just yesterday, I found out there's another organization in Japan. That's where I grew up, and it's called Refill Japan. I'm very excited to find all of these different groups in different countries. Okay, why BYO? And I think this is really important, partly because BYO it's kind of like a dark horse in the reuse world compared to something like a deposit return system. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. First of all, BYO is great for community activation. So if you are just one person bringing your containers to the store, you're just one person. But like when you do it as a group, it takes on a different meanings and it takes us to a different level. It has a transformative power. And why BYO? Second reason, it's simple, elegant, and effective. Anyone can participate. You don't need anything. You can use your spaghetti jar to fill up with nuts at the bulk sections at co-op, even drinks, anything. You don't need to buy anything new to participate. 3, you support local businesses. They are our best allies, people's favorite. And you can really feel it when you start posting on social media. Our social media used to be very sad and lonely. A lot of environmental organizations, they work so hard and you get only 1 like, 2 like, maybe a few more likes, but nothing really great. But then we start posting about local businesses doing BYO, we start to get lots of likes and followers. And also we get local media attention. Most of the groups in our national networks get local media coverage. So it's a really great way to raise awareness about our plastic pollutions and solid waste crisis by creating this kind of BYO community group. Okay. And 4th, build culture. I think this is a really, really important piece, and that is so overlooked about BYO. I think BYO is an indispensable segue to DRS. DRS is short for deposit return system. So in the deposit return system, and there are small businesses that does that, and we are all for it. And it's so wonderful. We look forward to, having this system everywhere, but that's just not happening. So in DRS system, you go to the store and the store provides you with a clean containers and you fill it and you take it home, you pay deposit for the container and you eat out of it and, cook out of it or whatever. And then you bring it back to the store and you get the deposit back. That's how DRS works. And it's great, except that it's very difficult to implement. Our groups when we started this a zero waste journey, that's what we wanted to do first. But then we realized how difficult it is. You need the capital, infrastructure, you need to think about inventory, who's gonna wash it, where to keep the containers. BYO is an answer to that. It's very simple. It costs nothing. It's very easy. And it also, we need every weapons in our arsenal to fight the culture of disposability. And one of the issues with DRS I noticed is that the poor return rate. Example is that we in our elementary school, we start introducing reusables, and guess what? The loss rate of the utensils we introduced, it's 50%. We have to hold the program because we were using the utensils we introduced right after another. So this is the culture we have to fight. And so introducing BYO I feel, is very important to create the culture of zero waste. I can give you another example, but I have 2 more examples why we need a BYO prior to DRS. But in the interest of time, I will move on. Another issue with DRS is in a remote rural area, it's going to take a long years for it to be rolled out. So meanwhile, do we just wait or we do BYO? I think it's even when the DRS is rolled out everywhere, BYO is going to be still very important important part of the reuse world. I just can't think of BYO, the reuse world without BYO. But it's an dark horse, and it's tend to receive less attention. But I think it's very important to educate, raise awareness, and activate communities. So we have our friend in Canada to write an essay on our website. I'd like you to check it out. Our website is usreduces.org, and the essay is posted there. And I would like to quote her: "Seemingly small individual BYO actions can become a catalyst and a stepping stone to other important policy decisions that usher in system-wide change." And I think it's really true. So I would like to encourage people to start the BYO program. Okay. Our mini history. I'd like to share the mini history of our network. It's a support network of all American BYO organizers, and we have international friends. And it's founded in 2022 with Anne-Marie, Aka Zero Waste Chef, and other awesome friends around the country. Anne-Marie introduced us through her blog post and social media post about Canada's Roncy Reduces and Canada Reduces. Roncy Reduces the very first group that started by Tina Sordovielli, and Anne-Marie interviewed her and shared what's happening in Toronto and Canada. And when I saw the post, I was like, oh, this is so great. I have to start this. This is genius. Because that's when I was struggling with trying to get the DRS going in my town, Ithaca, New York. And when I saw this BYO, yes, this is it. I can do this. I can figure this out. And, but like, it wasn't that simple. There were some obstacles, but like, I thought that I could, but it's been a very interesting and a great journey. And then like, of course, I'm just one of many other groups that popped up across the US, and we started to meet bi-monthly, and we launched website, started to get a speaker for our meetings, and created social media, published newsletters and things like that. And we had a really great speakers, like so many. Tina joined us from Canada Reduces, the founder of Canada Reduces, who started this program. And Bianca Kotor, founder of Australian BYO organization. And then just the last time we had Shona Brew, a New York City council member, who just passed BYO bill legislation in New York City to allow BYO at sports venues. And Jackie Nunes of Plastic Pollution Coalition, and John Dale from Last Beach Cleanup. I'm just so excited about our speakers. They're so wonderful. And so our group, Zero Waste Ithaca, is a grassroots group, and it grew out of a Facebook group I started in 2018. And yeah, we are a local group of the BYO US Reduces. And in addition to BYO programs, we fight artificial turf. We fight for reusing cafeteria at the schools. And we also have a sticker for Skip the Stuff. In this photo, a local coffee shop owner who joined our program is showing off the stickers for us. And we do dumpster study. How it works. So as you can see at the storefront, we put the sticker on saying BYO, town name, and you reduces. Ours says Ithaca Reduces. And then so like customers who come to the door can see, okay, I don't have to, you know, give a spiel about why I'm bringing my own containers. And so businesses love it when we post about them, you know, talking about their businesses and something special about them. And we put their business name. We have a list of participating businesses on our website, and we keep in touch for future collaboration. The connections we made with a BYO program, Bring Your Own program, was useful. Like as I started on the new program with Skip the Stuff. So we already know the businesses, and we also do fundraisers. We did the silent auctions, and you know, keeping in touch with these businesses help when we need items from silent auctions, and we like gift cards because we're zero waste groups, and so fundraisers, and we keep in touch about you know, encouraging them to offer different incentives, and you know, switch into reuse for on-site dining, and we do Earth Month raffles, hashtag contests, and things like that. So it's good to keep in touch, and it's been a really great experience. And local organizers are encouraged to attend the meetings, bi-monthly meetings with US Reduces, to check in and compare notes with different organizers from around the country. And it's a great time to share joys and struggles of local organizing. And here are some of the stickers from our groups. We have one in Baltimore. Columbia County Reduces is in New York State. Upper West Side, UWS is Upper West Side, New York City. Teton Valley is in Idaho. Harlem, New York City. And then we have Oregon Reduces. Oregon is covering the entire state, but that's because the people who decided to do this in Oregon is a nonprofit that covered the entire state. So they said they can do it. So we said, okay, we'll let you do it, and we'll let you handle it. They said they have connections all over Oregon. So usually we start with small neighborhood. Okay. So I want to talk about the difficulties in the United States. So we brought this program from Canada, and we came across with lots of hurdles because of the food code. Unfortunately, the United States, we have many prohibitions around the BYO practice. Different states have different rules, and it seems as though from my investigations that the United States seems to be the only country in the world that have so many active prohibitions against this very simple practice that saves our sanity and environment, which is very unfortunate. I have a list of international BYO codes and support that they receive from governments and NGOs. So I can put that in chat if I can find the chat button. Maybe not. I can't.
You can always do it after. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. How many minutes do I have?
You've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay. So here's California, and California is the best state to practice BYO because it allows across the board with all grocery stores and or you can take out food from the restaurants, which is very different from other states. And there are other states, some other states that allows you to do that, but like New York is supposed to be permissive, but we have many prohibitions. Each state is different, so you have to inquire. But most states allows you to do the BYO for the beverages and dry goods, and also from the dispensers, and then they also allow you to pack out leftovers. there are some exceptions like Idaho, but like that's mostly that's the case. Okay. So I will show you the pictures now. This is from Silicon Valley Reduces from Zero Waste Chefs in California. So she put this sticker on the Indian restaurant's deli. And this is a new group in Long Island, North Shore Reduces, bring your own container. And you can see the stickers here. And this is DC Reduces. And this is really interesting because DC has lots of prohibitions as well. So like, you know, they can't do it for the food takeouts. But it's allowed, but like they can, so this is what she did, this woman did, Stephanie Miller. She's a book author, wrote a book about zero waste for busy people. And what she did is that DC is like a dry cleaning town because it's a capital and there are a lot of people wearing suits. So there's the dry cleaner on every block, she said. And she was really troubled with the amount of trash, plastic, you know, bags that is used at the dry cleaner. So she decided to, you know, ask to BYO, allow BYO at these businesses. And they said yes. And she signed up like dozens of dry cleaners in Washington, DC. So I think that's really amazing. Okay. And this is Ithaca. This is a middle school student helping canvassing in downtown Ithaca, which was really fun. And for Earth Day, this was their Earth Day activity. And, you know, we have different BYO groups across the country. So it's kind of fun to visit each other. And this is where I visited New York City. And this is Alex Morgan of EcoRate app. Like if you know EcoRate, it's a really great phone app where you can find all the sustainable businesses. And so he does this like sustainability coffee conversation meetups every, you know, 2 weeks or so. So I joined and I was able to find people to start BYO groups in New York City. So we have Upper West Side and Harlem groups going. And now they're talking about just creating New York City group sticker because of a few different reasons. But I don't have time, so I will skip that. But like, it's really great to visit different local groups. So you make friends all over the place. And I'm not encouraging you to fry, but like, you know, somebody from New York City visited Ithaca. I can visit people in Columbia County. It's really great to have friends. Yes, and I told you about media. This is just one example. We got on the like a daily newspaper, which was big. We have multiple coverages from Ithaca College and news outlets and different places, and which is really, really great. These are people, my friends, tabling at the festival. This is my clean canteen that's like 10 years old. We created this like a mini sticker, 2-inch sticker, and this is coming in really handy. This is a great reminder for people to bring their own containers. So that's why we created it. But it's great to give out at the tabling event, and also high school students and middle school students loved it. Like just a little souvenir. Because I'm trying to introduce reusables at the K-12, and it was something really nice to give. People love these mini stickers. Of course, it's plastic, so I don't want to, you know, I emphasize to people that you put this on, you're going to use this canteen probably the rest of your life, and you can be proud. That's what I say. I have a photographer in our midst. And we had a really nice pictures like this, and it's so great to have photographers for website and stuff like that. So this is it for my presentation. Thank you so much for your attentions. I hope it was interesting, and I hope I was able to inspire you to start a group in New Hampshire. If you're interested, please go to the webpage usreduces.org/get-started, and join our bi-monthly meetings and meet people. And our website offers templates for stickers, flyers, and resources to make it easy for you. So please consider joining. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yayoi. That was really great. I'm always impressed by how much you have going on. And if you want to throw some links in the chat and help me out there, that would be good so I can keep us moving along.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and go straight into our third panelist, who is Dr. Zoe Diana, who is a Lieber Arrow postdoctoral fellow in the Rockman Lab within the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at the University of Toronto. Excuse me. Dr. Diana co-founded the Duke University Plastic Pollution Working Group and earned her PhD at Duke University within the Marine Science and Conservation Division and Integrated Toxicology and Environmental Health Program. She is also a plastic waste consultant for the World Bank. And I'm just going to let her tell you what she is up to with the Plastics Policy Inventory and Policy Effectiveness Library that can be used by communities to inform policy development. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind introduction and for having me here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. So I'm going to just dive right in since our time is limited here today, but basically I'll be discussing a study that I conducted on policy that's been adopted to reduce plastic pollution and looking at its effectiveness. This was done during my PhD with a bunch of great colleagues at Duke University. You'll see their faces throughout. So we're really zooming out here to look at how have governments responded to plastic pollution over the last 20 years. And what do we know about what's worked and what has not worked as well. And I hope that this is useful in order to just maybe get some ideas of what else is going on throughout the world and at different levels of government. And also maybe have some tools available that I'll be sharing here. So just a little bit about the study. So you know what we did. So we searched various keywords related to plastic pollution in legal databases, in scientific databases as well, and in Google News. And we went back and we actually then tracked down the original policy document and read them all and then did this qualitative analysis to say what policy instruments are they using in order to regulate plastics. We also did a lot of cross-checking to try to make this as comprehensive as possible, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So the policies that were included in our study had to go above and beyond general waste management policies. So they had to have this aspect of really targeting plastic specifically. We think that waste management is a really important part of the problem and so essential, of course, but for the scope of our study, they had to call out plastic specifically. So in brief, what we found, just looking at some macro level trends, is on the x-axis, you're looking at here the years. So this is over the past 20 years. And on the y-axis is a count of the number of policies adopted in each year. In the purple is the level of government is international level. So your UN treaties, for example. National level is orange, and subnational, so your states, your cities, like your states like New Hampshire, your cities like Ithaca, for example, that we've been hearing all these great efforts about. And at every level of government, what this is telling us is the number of policies adopted are increasing. So governments are super interested in regulating plastic pollution, no matter what level of government we're looking at. So now let's dive into those policies specifically, and we're going to start at the international level and see what they're doing here. So the y-axis is the number of policy instruments, and I'll talk you through the x-axis because I know the font can sometimes be a little hard to see. But the most frequently used policy instrument that international governments were using were plans or commitments for future action. So this is not, this is planning in the future to address plastic. It's committing to do so in the future, but it's not necessarily doing that right away. There's also a lot of education and outreach and research, data, record keeping at the international level. So increasing our information about plastic. On the far right, you're seeing less than 1% of policies were using economic instruments, which makes a lot of sense for at the international level. That's really hard to do, but we rarely saw things like tax breaks or subsidies, disincentives, cash for return systems, which is when folks would bring plastic to return cash or to receive cash, sort of like the deposit refunds systems that we were hearing about earlier. So let's keep it moving because the international level can feel so lofty. And just highlighting a few of the other researchers involved, Dr. John Bird and Rachel Karasik, you see their faces here. So now we're looking at the national level on how federal governments have responded to plastic pollution. By and far, we're seeing a lot of bans on plastic, and a lot of times these are bans on plastic bags, as you probably have guessed and seen in your everyday lives and your work in this area. We also are seeing bans on things like single-use food, cutlery, for example, as well. And plans and commitments for future actions remained really prominent as well. About 13% of policy instruments were using plans and commitments. Next were economic disincentives like your fees, your taxes, your levies placed oftentimes on plastic bags as well. Interestingly, again, we're still seeing that things like cash for return or similar to a deposit refund scheme, only 2.5% of national policy instruments were cash for return. There were also limits placed on plastic on the amount that could be produced or used, for example, or imported sometimes, but less than 2% of policies were using those, and less than 1% were using tax breaks, for example. So let's look at where these national policies are distributed throughout the world. Here's a map showing the number of policies in the various countries. And this also shows we had an English language bias in our study. So we were able to translate from French and Spanish to English, but that doesn't capture a large portion of the world. So in this initial study, you can see the gray areas are areas that were not accounted, that we didn't have policies for in our study. Either we missed them or they have yet to adopt a policy. So one other thing, we have this small table in the right-hand corner that discusses how complete we think our data set is. So in terms of the number of policies we could find versus references to policies in the literature or in the news, like, for example, there could be a news article that says the city of Toronto just passed a plastic bag policy. If we didn't find that original policy document that corresponded to that news reference, that's what this percentage is. So we found 97% of the policies with corresponding references at the international level. So we feel that that's pretty comprehensive. At the national level, we were around 50%, a little under 50%. So we feel like we have a representative sample there, but we're not comprehensive. And subnational, which I'll share after this, is just really a set of examples. We only have 20%. There's so many different subnational policies out there, and the databases that we use are regularly updated at the subnational level. So what you're seeing next is a set of examples, but hopefully useful for the purposes, for your purposes, which is at the subnational level primarily. So oftentimes in our set of examples at the subnational level, we're still seeing that bans play a prominent role in banning oftentimes plastic bags. And again, these plans and commitments to future action were prominent again, followed by research and record keeping, as well as education and outreach, which play an important role in getting folks to be aware of a policy and be and adopt different consumer behaviors. On the far right, less than 1% or less than 1% of policies were doing things like cash for return or capturing plastic in the environment. So you may have seen like litter traps out in rivers to capture plastic. Sometimes governments would actually put those in policies. And then again, your subsidies and your tax breaks were really not getting a lot of attention in subnational policies. I've mentioned the different plastic types targeted, not in the data set, but just in my speaking, but just to look at what these looked like over time. So on the x-axis, again, we're looking at the last 20 years, and the number of policies adopted is the y-axis. So we're seeing a lot of green is my first takeaway. And this is just showing that bags were pretty frequently targeted and increasing. Other large macroplastics are your gray color. So this is oftentimes your macro just meaning larger than your small microplastics. This is often your food cutlery, your takeaway containers, and so on. And we're also seeing more and more yellow, which is targeting more than one plastic type. So it's hard to show each of these here, but oftentimes one of those plastic types were bags as well. And we're seeing more and more yellow, which as a researcher is starting to say, okay, governments may be taking a more complex response, targeting more than one plastic type in a policy, which is pretty interesting to me. Last thing that I find interesting, and I hope you do too, is that microplastics are infrequently targeted by governments. Oftentimes this little bit of orange that you see is about further research, for example, is what governments were often calling for regulating microplastics. So we took all of these policies that we collected, and we didn't want anyone to have to go through that exercise again, because although it's fun to look through all of these policies, it's quite time consuming. So we put all of these policies on a website, and I'll paste the link into the chat right when I'm done presenting. But this little video that I'm about to share will actually go through, I'll talk through what the resources available on the website. It's all free and open access and everything. So we call it the Plastic Policy Inventory, as you can tell. And since the time that our study was published, we've now added there's over 900 policy documents in over 35 languages. So we've really expanded. And I'm slowing myself down just a little bit. If you want to dive more into the study that I was showing you earlier, there's a long report, 20 years of government responses to the plastic pollution problem on the far left. There's a annual trends, if you just want a brief of what's been going on in the last year. And then there's a scientific study, which is what I was showing you. And this sort of falls somewhere in the middle. It's shorter than the report. But because the peer review process can take a little while, it's about a few years old now. So you won't get the latest information as you will in the annual trends brief. Okay, so moving on, you can click this link, the Plastic Policy Inventory, and you can search a keyword of interest. So, and this search actually searches all the PDFs of the policies for you. I searched straw, so you can see it returned, I'm not sure how many policies, but a fair number. And then I heard that extended producer responsibility was of interest. So we have various keywords that we've also screened the policies for, or you could search them directly. So I clicked EPR there, and then it returns different extended producer EPR policies throughout the world. Then you can pick an area that might be similar to you. So I just clicked Maine because that might be a place that it's close by. Of course, there's many differences, but it's much closer than like I see on the list, Denmark or Costa Rica. You're welcome to, of course, look at those. They might have some really cool ideas, but if you want something that might be more similar. So if you go ahead and click the policy of interest, then you can click again and you can read exactly what those who design the policy put into it, if you're interested in diving in that deep. And then next, everyone wants to know, well, are these policies working to actually reduce plastic pollution? That's what we're all here for, right? So we took various studies that were looking at the effectiveness of policies to reduce plastic pollution, and we also put them online too. This is us just sharing other studies here. We didn't do these studies ourselves, but we hope that this event is of interest. So it's just like the information is right there and you don't have to do another search. There's more out there, of course, but so here I clicked EPR again, and you can see a few different studies out there about the effectiveness of EPR. And this one's looking at styrofoam buoys, and it goes and takes you to the link in order to actually read the study yourself. Some of them have these nice highlights, like you can see here that they were talking about how they were using workshops in order to find solutions to styrofoam buoy debris. So something like that might be helpful, maybe not, but good to know that it's out there just in case. Yeah, so those are the main highlights of our plastics policy inventory and effectiveness inventory. And I'm happy to share the link after so you can search about or answer any questions. So just to get back a little bit to the research before I wrap up, what do we know about our policies adopted to reduce plastic pollution working? What we know is a lot about plastic bag policies. Those are the policies that have been studied most frequently in the scientific literature. And over here, we're seeing the national level on the left and subnational on the right. And you can see that effectiveness varies across the different policies. So whether it's a little green dollar sign looking at your tax, fees, and levies, the bullet point for bans and taxes, fees, or levies, and the red X for just a ban. And the y-axis is just looking at the percent reduction in plastic bag consumption after the policy had been adopted. So the percentage of bags reduced after a policy was adopted. You can see it varies, and this is us summarizing other studies in the literature, anywhere from above 20 but under 30% up to reportedly 100% effectiveness in some areas. So you can see that it really varies, and we can dive into why there's these varied outcomes in questions, and I'll dive into a little in the next slide. So in this table, you're seeing different policy recommendations from the peer-reviewed literature. I'm just going to talk you through the plastic bag ones because that's what we've been talking about, but I wanted all of these in here just in case you all are interested in other policies as well. But for plastic bags, something that is thought to have help with the effectiveness is using a combination of policy instruments, especially when education and outreach and like that engagement is paired with things like a plastic bag tax or fee. So then consumers are more aware of it and might be able to remember their reusable bags, for example, is just one reason posited for that. The scientists also recommend not ignoring the shift in consumer behavior to other materials. So that could be paper bags, for example. This could also be sometimes there's a increase in garbage bag buying when there's a plastic bag fee adopted. And then in terms of the actual dollar sign, like the amount of the fee, needs to be high enough in order for consumers to notice it and not just pay it and ignore it. So those are some of the various recommendations from the scientific literature about improving policy effectiveness. And just a few minutes. I'm close to wrapping up, but there was interest in hearing about the Global Plastics Treaty. So in our initial study, at the time, there was no, and there still is no legally binding treaty to address plastic pollution. But since our study came out, the United Nations Environment Assembly has adopted this resolution 514 that aims to end plastic pollution and adopt the first draft and then get countries to adopt, member states to adopt this international legally binding treaty. So negotiations have begun. This treaty is they aim to have it drafted by the end of 2024. So negotiations began first in Nairobi and then Uruguay. There's going to be a meeting here. So I was the one based in Toronto, Canada. I meant to mention that at the beginning, but there will be negotiations based in Ottawa, Canada in April of 2024. Those are the next ones coming up. And Nairobi just occurred. But they're really trying to address plastic across its life cycle in the UNEA Treaty. They're still drafting and negotiating what this exact treaty text will say, but I have the link here of the latest draft that I'm going to pop into the chat in case anyone is interested in perusing it. It's a bit long for me to go through everything that's in it, but it's quite interesting just to see what might be down the line. And then just to summarize, we found 291 policies that had a clear aim of reducing plastic pollution. And we've found even more since. Governments are interested, so annual plastic policy adoption has been increasing over the last 20 years, and we expect that trend to continue. National policies as well as subnational policies are targeting plastic bags very frequently and using regulatory bans most frequently as well. We've created this inventory that we hope can serve as a tool. It collates different policies so you don't have to do it again. And we see a gap in that few policies are targeting microplastics despite their ubiquity everywhere. And we're excited to see this forthcoming UN treaty. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for the invitation to present here. It's really fun to hear about everything that's going on and very inspiring as well. And also thank you, of course, to my co-authors on the study that you saw today, as well as my current advisor, Dr. Chelsea Rockman, and my funders who have either supported me or this study. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diana. That was amazing. I, for one, direct a lot of people to the inventory. I find it to be a really great tool. And be prepared possibly for some questions at the end. We had one come in already. So we're running just a few minutes behind, but no worries. So I'm just going to keep it rolling, share my screen because I am your next panelist, and Susan already introduced me. So you all know who I am. So we don't have to go through that. And I'm going to share with you two initiatives here on the Seacoast. One is a campaign to make single-use takeout accessories available upon customer request, which I'm leading as campaign coordinator for the Surfrider Foundation New Hampshire chapter. And the other is a reusable takeout container pilot in Portsmouth and in Dover that I am co-leading with Christina Baber, who leads the Dover Plastics Reduction Group and is a former professor at the University of New Hampshire. So the key facts that I just want to get across about the New Hampshire waste landscape is that we're filling up our landfills and that no community wants a new landfill in their backyard, and no one with a landfill currently in their backyard wants it expanded. Also, about half of the waste disposed of in New Hampshire is imported from out of state, and we just don't have control over that. But what we do have control over is following the waste hierarchy and leading with source reduction to conserve rather that landfill space and to meet our state's updated goal of 25% waste reduction by 2030. We are very behind when compared with other New England states. So there is a really simple place to start with this reduction, and that is to reduce unnecessary single-use items. And that's where a skip the stuff policy comes in. So it's not a ban. It simply changes the default for takeout foodware accessories from opt out to opt in. It is easy, low-hanging fruit. There's no cost to restaurants or to customers, and it actually saves food businesses money. So by simply flipping it to an opt-in where you have to check the box when you're ordering, or you have to tell them when you're calling on the phone, the business isn't spending money on single-use items that customers often don't need and do not want. Many people are going home or to an office or another space where they already have reusable utensils, napkins, condiments, etc. So these items are just getting stuffed into a drawer, as you see on this photo, this piece of art here, and then they're thrown out. And they're thrown out at home, or typically into the municipal solid waste stream. So this will also reduce waste in MSW and benefits taxpayers and municipalities. So the cost savings for individual restaurants is obviously going to range depending on their takeout numbers and the disposable items that they're ordering and what they're made of. But the Green Restaurant Association averages that a restaurant saves about $5,000 a year with this policy, which is huge. So here in New Hampshire, the Surfrider Foundation has, New Hampshire chapter, has certified 5 ocean-friendly restaurants. They're looking to onboard more. It's a free certification, but restaurants have to meet 7 requirements. And then there's 3 from a list of other options. But in those 7 requirements is accessories upon request. So the businesses you see here in New Hampshire are supporters of Skip the Stuff and are skipping the stuff. Our chapter also engaged in other efforts, as did our partners in Dover. The Dover Plastics Reduction Group has done a ton of work with restaurants. And in both Portsmouth and Dover, but in Portsmouth, it was the Surfrider chapter that got a proclamation from the mayor for Plastic Pollution Reduction Month in July. And then we also had a large display at the library for Plastic Free July, and that was done in partnership with a refill business. All of the cleanups that the chapter did tied into the Skip the Stuff campaign. About 365 participants in 2023 removed about 576 pounds of trash from our seacoast beaches, and much of it is single use. And that data, by the way, goes into a national database that is used to support policy advocacy. Most importantly, I think we've involved students from Portsmouth High School's Eco Club and Seacoast Students for Sustainability. It is crucial to involve youth in your campaigns. This is very literally about their future. So these kids showed up last Monday night at the Portsmouth City Council meeting, speaking very eloquently in support of passing a Skip the Stuff ordinance that has teeth. And the council voted to send the proposed ordinance to the Sustainability Committee, who are named in the language to help the health department with education, and to the legal department for review. So we're looking to return on March 15th as needed to urge the council to pass the ordinance to first reading. And just to note that this has been like just about a year running this campaign, and that's pretty typical. So jumping back to the need for waste reduction, in addition to the rising cost of waste management and taxpayers footing this bill, we are also paying with our health. There are hazards that are presented throughout the entire life cycle of plastic, from the extraction of fossil fuel to the production in environmental justice communities in Louisiana, Texas, and now Appalachia. Plastic is made to last, right? It's a polymer with strong carbon-to-carbon bonds. And then any of over 13,000 chemicals that are associated with plastics are essentially layered in. So they're not bonded, and they can leach out into our environment, into our food, and ultimately into our bodies. And these chemicals do many things, including disrupt our endocrine systems. This can lead to a variety of outcomes. You can see pictured here on the right, including diabetes and reproductive problems. And many of these chemicals are also neurotoxicants or carcinogens. So many remain unknown and unstudied, which is very unsettling. And plastic being this material that's made to literally last forever, it doesn't biodegrade. It photodegrades. It breaks up into tiny and tinier pieces known as microplastics and nanoplastics, which scientists have discovered. I feel like there's a new study coming out pretty much every week or month about where they're finding it. It's in our blood, it's in live lung tissue, both sides of the human placenta. So we really need municipalities and yes, states, but if we're focusing on local work to step up and protect public health. This is not just about litter or waste reduction. So this is really what drove Christine Baber and I to move forward with a reusable takeout container pilot for restaurants. We were looking at the fact that nearly half of food packaging is plastic, or it makes up that percentage of the waste stream. And that there are all these chemicals and highly toxic chemicals that can leach out. Unfortunately, recycling and composting are not a solution. We know that less than 6% of plastics are recycled, and that means downcycled. So a bottle into a fleece or a rug, for example, and then when that item reaches its end of life, it is then disposed of. Plastic can only be recycled a handful of times, and it always requires mixing in a large amount of virgin material and the addition of more chemicals to get the color, rigidity, whatever the properties are. And this is why there's a recent study that came out showing that recycled plastic is actually more toxic than virgin plastic made with virgin fossil fuel. Bioplastics and compostables also are not a solution. The term compostable is in the green guides, the Federal Trade Commission's green guides, but it's not actually like a regulated term. So compostables can still include fossil fuel-based plastic, still include chemicals like PFAS. If they do not make their way to an industrial compost facility, then they're going to mimic their fossil fuel counterparts in the environment. And there's a lot of customer confusion. There's people putting things in their recycling bin that's not supposed to be there, putting it in the compost stream. We need to keep the, about 20% of the municipal solid waste stream is from food waste. We need to keep that clean so we can actually divert that material. And this issue led to commercial composters in the Pacific Northwest to just completely stop accepting any type of bioplastic. And we're expecting that trend to possibly continue across the rest of the United States. There are plenty of examples of restaurants and case studies of restaurants saving money by switching to reusables. There are subsidies available from organizations like Plastic Free Restaurants. And so this all, all looked very promising to Christine and I. And we also have adopted in Portsmouth and Dover 2023 FDA food code, but 2017 food code is the one that allows restaurants to provide customers with a reusable container that those customers can then take home or wherever, return to the restaurant, who is going to wash it according to food code. So as Yayoi said before, so in New Hampshire, like many states, you can bring your reusable mug to get your beverage put into it, and you can bring a container to your table to put your leftovers in. But we are not at the point yet where I could bring in a container that can be taken back to the kitchen to put my new order in. So that's where this pilot comes in. So we are using a company called Foodware that provides a tracking platform that customers will download to their phone. And it essentially works like checking out a library book with a QR code that you check it out from that restaurant. And then when you return it, you'll check it back in again by scanning that QR code. So after about a year of preparation, I just wanted to give a quick, just show you, what we went through. We did a ton of research. We looked at different companies, different apps. We ultimately chose stainless steel containers with a silicone lid because of the health impacts that I talked about before. We secured the funding we needed with some grants and private donors, kind of patched everything together. We've done a lot of interviews with restaurants to narrow down who's going to participate. And I hope by the beginning of March, we'll be announcing those restaurants and kicking off the pilot. So I'm gonna stop there and do a time check. I think that I did go, sorry, I did go quite a bit over. Apologies. I thought I was doing good, and then I looked at the time. So we're gonna go ahead and move into the Q&A right now. So I do have one question. I'm just looking in the chat as I was presenting to see if any others came in. What does the poster say? Which post was that for me, Yayoi?
Oh, yes, I saw the students holding all the posters,
Oh, they wore trash on their backs that they had, the trash that they accumulated from their own, I can't remember the time frame, but yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I couldn't see the letters, so that's why I just wondered. So it was.
Yeah, that was a photo they had given me. So that wasn't part of the skip the stuff, but I just wanted to show a photo of them. So I'll work back through the chat, but one that came in for you, Dr. Diana, is what happened between 2018 and 2020 to have the number of policies decline so much? And feel free if you want to jump back to that slide and share it.
Yeah, of course. And you can call me Zoe.
Zoe, okay. I
Don't worry.
really feel like you work hard to get that PhD, and like just use, yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, so great question. I will briefly share. So our searches for this study ended in mid 2019, so that's why you're seeing a drop. And I should be sharing now. And I'm guessing you're seeing, oh, where's my screen? There we go, like this little drop here. So yes, that's just a relic of our study. But I will say, since we've updated this, as I mentioned, this peer-reviewed study is a little old because of how long the peer review process takes. Since then, we did see a dip in the number of policies adopted. I think this was just in 2023 when we were looking back over what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. We did see a small dip during the pandemic in terms of governments adopting policies. And I'm sure you all probably saw this. We saw this, there were different folks tracking it, but that a lot of folks were just delaying adopting policies given the uncertainties with the pandemic, given public health concerns and so on. I think now we're past that and folks are forging ahead and knowing we can just, wash our reusables as we would have pre-pandemic, and really we're not as concerned anymore. But those are a bit of what you're seeing.
Great, thank you. I had a couple for me that I'm going to answer, and then I'll go back to one for Yayoi. The last OFR, so I'll just say the OFRs that I had listed in New Hampshire are Tideline Public in Durham, Carriage House in Rye, Flatbreads in Portsmouth, and it's actually all flatbreads throughout New England, White Heron in Portsmouth, and the Press Room in Portsmouth. And a question came in asking if I said that bioplastics may not be used in composting food. So what I was saying is that the products that are labeled compostable which means, you know, unless they're labeled backyard compostable, you have to take them to an industrial composter like Mr. Fox or Black Earth. And so they're finding that they're not, again, because that term isn't regulated, and Representative Partial put in a piece of legislation that in New Hampshire would seek to do that. There can be all sorts of claims that are made, and then that product doesn't actually break down the way that it's supposed to in that environment. And it can include, like I said, I most frequently point towards PFAS, but it can include chemicals and additives that you wouldn't think would be in a compostable item. So for Yayoi, how do the stores learn and train the staff to tear the containers? I'm assuming the staff, maybe the customers, mesh bags, et cetera, or glass containers, or train them how to measure the volume for glass containers.
It depends on the businesses, and for our local food co-op, they already had the things to measure weight, and so they were already doing that before even we started this program. And for coffee shops, sometimes they ask you, like, you know, is that 8-ounce cup or 12-ounce cup or 16-ounce cups? You know, those, you know, they will ask you. And I think a lot of people just eyeballing it. So I think it depends on the businesses.
Thank you. Zoe, what are some policies that came up to curb microplastics? I know you said there's not a lot of them, but.
Yeah, there's not a lot. The main policies that we saw targeting microplastics were calling for further research on them. There have been, of course, there was the national policy adopted in the US in order to ban plastic microbeads in rinse-off products, like in your face wash, and products like that, cosmetic products. So a lot of the policies have been microbeads, which is just one subset of microplastics. And then the state of California has recently adopted drinking water standards for microplastics. So they're starting by just figuring out how do we, or they're doing interlaboratory studies to make sure that they are measuring microplastics in the same way across their drinking water monitoring system in the state. And then and then from there they'll be moving forward, but that's sort of where they're beginning, because there can be different methods to quantify. Yeah, so that's the microplastics. But one other thing is just the policies targeting larger plastics can still help to reduce microplastics because of your larger plastics breaking down into smaller pieces. So I'll leave it there.
I have a couple more for you, so I'm going to stay with you, and then I'll jump.
No problem.
And that came in for me. Well, I'll say this first, then I'll go back to the question. So someone wants to see the slide that showed which countries are doing the most to regulate plastic, if you find that and want to put it up. But the question is, have you tracked the number of policies that try to aid chemical processing of plastic? So I'm assuming chemical recycling or advanced recycling, as an attempt to claim that this is recycling. And the state's laws have grown in the last 10 years to 22 states, and has this grown globally too? I'm assuming in terms of what we're seeing, moving chemical recycling to manufacturing as opposed to waste management, and have any countries resisted or banned this type of toxic chemical recycling?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question. No, so I'll just start with the map. So you're seeing the highest that we're seeing is the 7. And we're in the UK. We're also seeing high levels of yellow and green here in North America. I mean, generally, we see a lot of policies in the EU. This is national level, but the European Union will adopt a lot of policies regionally. So that would fall into our international level, which isn't mapped here. This is only national level policies mapped here. So we do see a lot of activity in the European Union around plastics. So that was the first question. Then the question about chemical recycling. This wasn't something that we looked at separately. We didn't look at chemical recycling in particular. I will say though that given what we've put out there in terms of the policy inventory, you could search any keywords that you are interested related to chemical recycling. So I've heard it called advanced recycling as well. You could search those keywords in the inventory and then pull out anything that returns about chemical recycling. We didn't look into that in particular. But we are seeing, or I'm hearing like anecdotally more talk about chemical recycling, but it wasn't something that we looked at. So I don't feel like I can really answer that question that well. Apologies.
No, I think that was good to know, though, that people can go in and search and kind of see what comes up.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna answer one more question, and then we'll see if I can answer direct this last one. But there was one question Lisa had asked about how I involve students. Yes, we reached out to the local high school eco club. They then were connected with this larger Seacoast group that's comprised of, I think, 4 or 5 different towns and cities. So typically you can contact a teacher at the school who find out who leads the group and get in that way. If you don't know, if you don't have kids who may, or, parent, you're not a parent yourself or know anyone that can do that outreach. So yeah, we'll do one more here. Are there regulations or improved usage about the term biodegradable in terms of simply creating microplastics versus actually degrading? So there is an effort to to create a legal term. Yes, like I said, right now in the FTC green guides, it's not like a legally binding instrument, but yes, in California has made efforts to do that. So I think we're going to see that. Absolutely. All right. So to get us back on track, I think we're back on track timing wise now. So we're going to move into this last panel here. And I'd like to welcome Cindy Heath, who is founder of Living a Sustainable Lifestyle, Tea and Talks. She's also a founding member and convener of the New Hampshire Network Plastics Working Group. She is a member of the Cornish Conservation Commission and the Cornish Community Initiative. And Cindy is going to update us on the status of 4 key plastic pollution and waste reduction bills that are currently being considered by the New Hampshire legislature. Take it away. Oh, you are still on mute.
Okay, let's try that again. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, so thanks for hanging in there and for joining us tonight. We're really pleased to have you all here. I'm going to go through very briefly the 4 primary bills that the Plastics Working Group is supporting in this legislative session. Before I get into that, I do want to acknowledge several people that have had some great influence in helping guide the Plastics Working Group in our support of these bills. So first of all, Nora Bosworth is a staff attorney for the Conservation Law Foundation, and she has helped us understand sort of the nitty-gritty of these various bills. So we thank her for her involvement with our group. Of course, we have our champions of the environment, the legislators who introduced this legislation, who took the bold step of trying to bring this solid waste and plastic pollution conversation to the fore in our legislature. Those are Representative Sherry Dutsey, Representative Lucius Partial, Representative Tony Kaplan, and Representative Karen Ebel. So we really, really thank them for taking that bold step and getting these legislative initiatives out there to start the conversation. And of course, we have the Plastics Working Group members who have been writing letters and providing testimony and showing up to meetings every 2 weeks. And our legislators are attending those meetings as well to keep kind of a pulse on the beat on the pulse of this work. So thanks to everybody for being part of this and making it happen and bringing this information to the forefront in our legislature. We are tracking these 4 bills. If you want to learn more and see this definitive language about the bills, you can go to the New Hampshire General Court website, and there you can find a way to link to the videos of the hearings that these bills had. You can see the actual language of the bill. You can take a look at the testimony that was submitted online for each of the bills. So there's a lot of information that you can find on the website of the New Hampshire General Court to learn more. We do know that for success, these bills require like a bipartisan and multi-stakeholder effort, and we're working to achieve that, supporting our legislators in their initiatives as well. So these are the 4 bills that we're tracking. HB 1207 is relative to single-use disposable plastic foodware accessories, which Christina talked at length about, the Skip the Stuff campaign. The prime sponsor for that bill is Representative Tony Kaplan. HB 1636, relative to creating the New Hampshire Container Deposit Refund Recycle Reuse System. This is a modernized version of a bottle bill. This prime sponsor for this bill is Representative Sherry Dutsey. HB 1649 is relative to prohibiting certain products with intentionally added PFAS, a class of chemicals that has been known to cause kidney cancer and other ailments in humans. The prime sponsor for that bill is Representative Karen Ebel. And then the HB 1630, which is relative to extended producer responsibility for packaging. Prime sponsor is Representative Lucius Partial. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail for each of these, same format for each bill. So the gist of this bill, HB 1207, is modeled on the Skip the Stuff campaign by the Surfrider Foundation. And so the New Hampshire Surfrider has been very active in trying to advance this bill under Representative Kaplan's leadership. So it does prohibit self-serve disposable plastic foodware accessory dispensers or offering disposable plastic foodware accessories to customers except upon request. So you saw what that contained: straws, utensils, stirrers, condiment packaging, etc. The online testimony for this bill was 93 in support and 9 in opposition. And the committee hearing outcome was that the bill is referred to interim study. So what's next is that we as constituents can take an active role in helping to support this bill moving forward. The Upstream Solutions Organization, which is based in Maine, is a reusables focused nonprofit. They have a lot of resources to help advance the reusables concept as a solution. Christina mentioned Plastic-Free Restaurants, which is a grant program that will support local restaurants in their quest to transition away from single-use plastics. So they will fund the difference between the single-use plastics and a reusable model. And so we do need more restaurants to support the bill in the next session. So you can join Surfrider, you can join the Plastics Working Group to stay abreast of these legislative efforts and work locally to support your local restaurant in the transition. And of course, join the 10 Actions Toolkit. Plenty of resources and guidance from all of the folks currently in the group. The next bill, the gist of this one is the container deposit bill, which, as you know, transfers responsibility for redeeming bottles and cans to the producers. There has been a lot of information and research about the trash reduction and increased recycling benefits of this type of bill, widely accepted around the country and in Europe and in other parts of the world. And the interesting thing on the online testimony for this bill was 128 in support and 198 in opposition, many of those trade organizations, and for a variety of reasons were opposed to this bill. So the committee hearing outcome for this is also interim study. And Representative Dutzy is working on building a coalition of stakeholders and recruiting retail supporters and including industry reps to help compose the bill so that it's fair for everyone. So if you're interested in working on this at all, you can look at the bill online and see the modernization of it. There are many, many good models out there that we've used to upgrade this. It's been introduced in New Hampshire over the decades and has not gone anywhere. So we're continuing to try to support this initiative with Representative Dutzy. Next is the HB 1649 relative to PFAS, and this was introduced by Representative Karen Ebel. And there are a number of consumer products that are targeted in this bill. And this PFAS is a class of chemicals. There are many, many subchemicals in this, but there are a couple that the research is showing is, as I said, causing kidney cancer, low birth weights, compromised immune systems, and a host of other ills that are designed to be addressed by removing these chemicals from these products. The online testimony showed 174 in support and 5 in opposition. And fortunately, the committee hearing outcome was ought to pass. So the next steps for this bill is the House vote. And as constituents, we can reach out to our representatives individually to educate them and request support for this and all of these bills. I recently did this with my 2 reps. We had breakfast. I educated them about these 4 bills and invited their support moving forward. So it was really gratifying to meet with them. They were very helpful in helping me to learn more about the legislative process and strategizing to get these bills advanced. And so we encourage everyone to reach out to your reps and have this conversation about these bills. And then finally, HB 1630, the extended producer responsibility for packaging. This bill has, what's interesting is that there are, at first glance, 18 different toxic substances that this bill, in packaging, that this bill addresses and prohibits. And so the producers are required to pay fees, as you probably know, to fund local government reimbursements for recycling, infrastructure, education. There's an assessment requirement to evaluate packaging and recycling effectiveness. This bill would save money for taxpayer dollars and communities who are currently paying to manage the waste that's being produced in our state. So it has that advantage. It allocates funds through an independent organization that would be overseen by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to improve recycling at the community level and reuse infrastructure. It directly addresses the source reduction goals of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And so I want to credit Beyond Plastics for this graphic. This is one half of a really great graphic that summarizes this bill very nicely. And it has to do with the priorities of New Hampshire's waste hierarchy. So it's a very, very logical bill, very complex, but comprehensive. The online testimony for this bill was 119 in support and 10 in opposition. And unfortunately, it was the committee hearing outcome was inexpedient to legislate, but we do have some kind of information that a possible ad hoc study committee will be formed to continue to look at this bill and develop it and refine it for New Hampshire. So I'm going to stop there and turn it back over to Christina. Thanks for listening and attending, and please do get involved in working on the legislative process. I've only been at it for a couple of years and have learned a lot, and it's not that hard, but it is kind of, as you know, you have to be patient, and it does take a while. So we are in support of these 4 bills and many others, and want to continue to work with our environmental champions in the legislature to get these bills passed and at least begin the conversations to start educating our legislators about how important it is to get these bills passed in New Hampshire. So thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. I love how organized you present information. It just works really well for my brain. I'm sure other people do. And I will say that it's, in typical fashion, it takes a few sessions. The more comprehensive the bill, the longer it's going to take to get passed. But having consistent advocacy is really important. And there were some questions that came up around extended producer responsibility and the bottle deposit legislation that I don't think we're going to have time to dig into. These are really pretty deep, comprehensive policies with a lot of different details. So I will say that this group, is a Beyond Plastics affiliate and is really looking at best practices in the policies that we support to make sure that we're not giving control of a system to producers and making sure that the environmental agency has oversight and all of the bells and whistles that are needed. So with that, I believe that I'm actually turning it over to Susan to do the outro here and leave you all with a few little homework items. You're still on mute, Susan.
There we go.
Oh, there
So
you go.
first off, I just wanted to show you, this is a page from the New Hampshire Network, and it is our bill action page. This is from last week. People were asking about labeling of products, whether or not they're allowed to have the recycling logo, whether or not they can say they're biodegradable or compostable. And they were heard last week. And I don't know, Representative Partial, are you on? Are these bills still live? When are they going to be voted on? Can people still write a letter to their representative saying, support this when it gets voted on? Oh, maybe he's gone. Okay, well, I can't tell you now, but if you come back here, we're at New Hampshire Network.org /NH bills. You'll see these bills and we'll have them updated. Or you can just contact your representative now and say, I'm really concerned about this. Can you tell me what's going on? So please become acquainted with our website. And then this week, this is landfill week, and you have time. Bills are being presented, heard on Wednesday and I think there's one on Tuesday as well, which is not, here we go. Priority support relative to suspending the issuance of new landfill.
I am here, by the way.
Oh, hi, Representative Partial.
I couldn't myself unmuted. I'm sorry.
No. So what can we do about the recycling and the compostable labels? Are those bills still alive?
Well, I will tell you that the Tony's bill, which I was co-sponsor on, the Say No, that does look like it's it looks like it's probably gonna have to wait until next year. I don't know if that's the correct date on here, but for let's see.
Okay, now I'm looking at landfill. Here is the packaging language.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was going to speak about because I know that one. Relative to the sale of products labeled as biodegradable or compostable. The laboratory that does the type of testing on these weighed in, and they had some very good suggestions to amend the bill, which were presented to the committee. The committee received it favorably, and I'm still very dubious about anything actually making it through, but it does look promising, I have to say. If this bill were to go through, products sold as compostable in the state of New Hampshire would have to have a certification that they meet, is it ASTH 5400 standards or something like that. Testing, basically, laboratory testing to make sure they're not shedding microplastics or anything else into the waste flow. So it is something that really addresses microplastics. Doesn't say it by name, but it's that's part of the testing. And I think there might be a little reason to be enthusiastic about it. So if anybody wanted to weigh in on House Bill 1681, I would recommend it. There's also, I don't see it on here, there's a paint EPR bill coming up tomorrow for a work study.
No, I didn't include that, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay,
You do so
but-
much. It's just wonderful.
Okay,
I'm gonna go back to being quiet now, though, if that's okay, because you have a lot to say.
sure, but what Cindy Heath said, have a cup of coffee with your reps, find out what they know about, encourage them to do something about it.
Well,
Okay,
we are gonna try to get, I mean, it's probably a Herculean task, but with a vote of 12-8 on the ITL on the extended producer responsibility, if people can contact their legislators and ask them to vote for it, at least we make it look close. It'll make it look that much better to come back next year. And who knows, they might even be able to turn it over. Democrats will be in favor of turning over the ITL and moving to OTP. So that's encouraging.
well, our representatives on $100 a year are doing $1 million job, so thank you. Okay, a couple other points that I'd like to make before you go is that you can join us. We have, the New Hampshire Network has network working groups. Every Friday we meet and discuss what legislation is coming up and what are the issues, what's the backstory, how can we help. On February 21st at 3 o'clock, if you belong to your town's energy committee, or if you're interested, that's when we'll have a meeting discussing, sharing what's going on among energy committees and how they can help each other. Brand new environment group, also February 21 at 5, and then plastics. And that's where all of the wonderful things you've seen today have been fomented. Come join us every other Sunday at 6. It's a nice way to finish off the weekend and get ready for the week. So plastics, February 25th next, 6 p.m. And there's a climate group that'll be meeting March 6th at 7. For the Zoom link, time, date, agenda, recordings of past meetings, recordings of these events, New Hampshire Network is the place you want to go. And it's an easy email address to remember, or website. Also, you've just seen our spreadsheet. Please take a look at it. Usually it's up by Saturday, so you have lots of time if you want to write the legislators to tell them what to do, or there's information there on how you can just press a button and express yay or boo about any bill. And that also is at our website. And next, this is an energy issue, but the Public Utilities Commission is not as visible in their interactions as the legislature, and they are making decisions about net metering. And if those go well, then community power and other solar projects will survive. And if it goes poorly, then the future looks a little murky. So if you want to know more about that, another organization we support, cleanenergynh.org/NEM. That's where you can find out. You need to weigh in by February 20th, how you can make sure that we keep net metering in a way that it pays for itself. And finally, similarly, February 20th, last day to help shape the state's climate action plan. They're looking for near-term, high-priority, implementation-ready measures to lower emissions in the Granite State. So that is cprg@des.nh.gov. If you want this information on a regular basis, go to our website and you'll see at the bottom the email address. It's just, again, us@gmail.com, and tell us you want to be a member. We'll join you. And that's it for me. And thank you everyone who's hung on this long. It was really informative, and the presenters, bravo. Yay, I learned so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.